Hey guys, Ronnie here. This week's episode is brought to you by NelsieSpencer.com. Everything Nelsie Spencer and Losing It is on NelsieSpencer.com. There you can find links to Nelsie's book, movie, and classes. Take Nelsie's writing classes or get one-on-one coaching and sharpen your writing skills. Take classes like screenwriting class and novel writing first draft. If you'd like to support the show, grab a couple things at the Losing It merch store where we have mugs, t-shirts, hoodies, hats like this one, the one I'm wearing, and much more. If you're watching this on YouTube, check out links to NelsieSpencer.com and other things such as the links to our equipment we use and all our social handles in the description down below. And if you want to contact us, tell us you love us, hate us, want to tell us you're losing a story and possibly have Nelsie read it on the show, email us at losingitcontact@gmail.com.
Losing it, losing it, losing it, losing it, losing it, losing it, losing it. If you got a story, we don't care if it's happy or gory, so come share your losing it story with us.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Losing It, the podcast where guests come on and tell a losing it themed story. And today's first of all, episode 100. Woohoo! Cue the confetti, cue the band, cue the dancing girls. La, da, 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 da. Yeah, so 100 episodes. That's pretty cool, right? And it all began, I think, in 2019 when I lassoed Lindsay, who was one of my writing students, to be my producer. And we did a bunch of those. She moved on, said, "See you later, Nelsie." She moved to Boston, got married, blah, blah, blah. And then Ronnie Whaley entered my life. Oh my God, what a beautiful day that was. I can remember it. And Ronnie and I have done so many together, and Ronnie took us to the next level with our YouTube channel. So I'm happy that you're here. I'm happy that you're listening. I'm happy that you're watching. If you're watching and you decide you want to listen or vice versa, you've got some options. So that's fantastic. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Okay, that's really important. We only have 5-star reviews, and that's all we accept. So go ahead and click those 5 stars and write a review, and that makes us happy and helps us. So it's now just me talking to me. And let's hope I think that I'm as fascinating as I am. I do have a couple of good stories. Okay. So we've had some really great weather here in October. So great that my husband and I have been to the beach like 5 or 6 times, right? The other day we go to the beach and it's time to go and we're packing up, and I look down and I see this little bug crawling around. It looks like a moth. It's about an inch, maybe an inch and a half long and an inch wide. It's pretty big. And he looks lost. I don't know if it's a he. Purr looks lost. And so I'm like, I think I'm going to save it because that's the kind of gal I am. And so I make sure, and because it's not flying, it's got these big old wings, but it's not flying. So I grab Purr and get it on my towel, and I'm talking to it, and we're leaving the beach, and I'm carrying my bag and my chair. And as we're leaving, we go up the path, and we're about to head down to the street, and man and woman approach us. I'm assuming they're husband and wife. And the woman's like, "Hey, how's the weather?" I'm like, "No, it's really good." I said, I have a little bug. I caught a little bug. And she gets this look of fear on her face. And she goes, "Oh, is that one of those spotted flies? Spotted lantern fly." I'm like, "I don't know. Is it? What's that?" She goes, "Oh, it's this insect that's come over, I think from China. I could be wrong. I don't want to give China a bad rap if they don't deserve it. And it's infesting parts of America. Like it's a problem." So I'm looking at this little bug that I've become very good friends with. And I'm like, "Oh my God, is this like some sort of predator that I have to do away with?" So of course, immediately I'm like Googling spotted lanternfly, and I look, Google images. I have a spotted lanternfly right here on my little towel. And the woman looks at me and she goes, you got to kill it. I'm like, what? We've become very close. And it's big, right? It's big-ish, right? And when it flaps its wings, it's got this beautiful bright orange, like reddish orange spots, spotted lanternfly that you can see. So I'm like, okay, I got to kill it, right? So I put it down and I take my shoe off and I smash it. And the woman goes, aw. I'm like, you cannot say aw. You cannot tell me to kill this thing. Force me, basically, to be a bug killer and then make me feel bad. So I did. I killed it. And I think that I've single-handedly probably saved some trees or some leaves or some bushes or something. So that's my big news. That and the fact, another kind of interesting fact that's beach related. You guys know that Callie is my dog and she's a handful, and that I've been working with a trainer with her. Jim Riley, who is an ex-cop, 30 years training police dogs. So he knows his shit, right? So we've had like 6-7 sessions and they're not cheap. But let me tell you that my dog, out of control dog, has gone from pulling me everywhere to lunging at people, at skateboards, at bikes, at the Amazon truck, to now when I walk her, she heels right next to me. When I stop, I don't even have to stop and say sit. I just stop. She sits. We come home. Before I go up the stairs to our house, because our house is elevated to the front porch, I make her sit, stay. She stays. I walk up the steps. Come, Callie. She comes. This is a miracle. I know it doesn't sound like a miracle, but it's a miracle because she's been a very out of control dog. So next level. So by the way, we kind of graduated last week. Jim has sort of taught us and done all that he can do with us. And now it's just maintenance, right? So last Friday was our last one-on-one with Jim. So I take her to the beach because now that the weather's changed, I take her to IBSP, which is a big, it's a state beach. It stands for Island Beach State Park here in New Jersey. And I take her where hopefully there's nobody on the beach because I want to try letting her off leash. So I let her off leash. She runs like a lunatic. She loves to run, just pew, does zoomies, as everybody talks about, runs this way, runs that way. And I start to get nervous because if she's the kind of dog that will take off and not come back. So then I'm like, Callie, come. She stops. Callie, come. She looks at me. Callie, come. Callie, treat. She looks at me. She runs towards me. Now, there's a very good chance she's going to run towards me and right past me. Callie, come. Callie, treat. She runs to me. Callie, sit. She sits and takes a treat. You have no idea what a huge thing this is because now I can let her off leash. I mean, not anywhere, somewhere where I'm not going to let her off leash near traffic or anything like that. And not only did she do that once, she has done that every single time I've gone to the beach with her for 2 days. She's done it twice. I mean, every single time on 2 days. So that's my big news. I'm a bug killer and my dog now listens to me. And that's pretty fabulous. I'm so excited because we have somebody that I talk about all the time on the podcast. I think I talk about her not only on Losing It, but on What If Nothing's Wrong, our other podcast. And I love her. Her name is Nicole Sachs. She's a licensed clinical social worker. She does this amazing work with chronic pain. Her website is Cure for Chronic Pain. And I had an amazing interview with her. So check it out. So I know I say this every week, but the reason I get to say this every week is because A, I have a fantastic producer who finds amazing guests, and B, I get to find my guests. So when I find somebody that I connect to almost always on a heart level, and I reach out to them, which you can now because of social media, and they say yes, it's like, oh my God, I've died and gone to heaven. And my guest today is one of those people. She's smart. She's funny. She's real. She's vulnerable. She's courageous. She's what I love about her is that she's like, not for a second does she act like she's perfect. She's on a mission. She's on a mission to help people. And as a result, she's got a huge following. She's got all this free content online, whether it's YouTube or Instagram or her Facebook page. I found her through My Favorite Murder.
Oh, yeah.
Because Georgia Hardstock was like, oh, cure for chronic pain. I'm like, I don't know what that is, but I'm in. So I'm so happy and excited to invite Nicole Sachs to the podcast. Hi, Nicole.
Hi, Nelsie. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming. I love your glasses, by the way.
Thank you.
Those are very cute. Very cute. So here's the funny thing. First of all, it's like we were supposed to do this, I don't know, maybe a month ago. And then you had like a kid issue, which happens because you're a mom. And so then we rescheduled, but it's happened. So I've had a long time to anticipate it. And pretty much the minute I started listening to your podcast, I was like, I started having questions in my head, right? It's like, well, I'm going to have to ask. This was before I'd even invited you on. Okay, so tell the listeners a little bit about what the cure for chronic pain is and how it came about.
So it came about organically because when I was 19, I was diagnosed with a condition called degenerative spondylolisthesis, which means that I have a pretty severe abnormality of my lower spine on MRI and X-ray. And it was in the middle of a really severe back incident where I was laid out. I had to come home from college, the whole 9 yards, all the testing. So it really began as a desperate cry for help in my own life, not knowing what was wrong with me and how I was going to deal with this horrible diagnosis, which was going to limit me for life, according to the doctors. A few things that I was never to do again: never travel, never play sports. Most likely I would never have a biological child because the weight of the baby would be too much pressure on my back. And if I didn't follow these incredibly important fear-driven rules, I likely would be in a wheelchair by the time I was 40. So that's what I was told when I was 19. And through understanding mind-body medicine and through the work of Dr. John Sarno, who was a brilliant genius for many, many, many years at NYU Rusk Center for Rehabilitation at NYU Medical Center, I understood that there are many different reasons that our body experiences pain and discomfort and dysfunction and nervous system dysregulation and so many intricate things that I had no idea. I was 19. I was footloose and fancy free until this happened to me, as far as I knew. And I had no idea that we are a society plagued with chronic lots of things. You know, I had to pick a name for my brand when all this began. And I picked the cure for chronic pain because I had to pick something, but this is so much bigger than what people might consider chronic pain. And that's one of the things I really appreciated about Georgia when she shouted me out on My Favorite Murder, because what she said is, this is not about people, just people in back pain or migraines or fibromyalgia, even though it is indeed about those people, but it's about people with anxiety or depression or low energy or chronic fatigue.
That's what I thought. I mean, for me, it's so interesting because when I will say just the title Cure for Chronic Pain, I was like, I'm in. And at the time, this is really funny, Nicole, because at the time I was like, well, I don't really have chronic pain, but I want to listen. I want to find out what she has to say. And I started to listen, and Nicole's podcast is amazing. And she does something called Real Time Heal, where she has somebody on and who's got chronic pain and she sort of walks them through it. She has other people on who have used her techniques and who are now free of chronic pain. So they get to hear their story. Sometimes she just checks in with what's happening with her, but her podcasts are always informative. And as she says, she's her own laboratory. So she's walking through her life with you and her own journey with chronic pain. So when Georgia said cure for chronic pain, because for me, my chronic pain has been emotional.
Yeah.
You know, my chronic pain has been grief, has been trauma, has been sadness. I've certainly had depression and anxiety. But the really funny thing is I started listening to you and I was like, oh yeah, I did have constipation as a kid. Oh, I did have chronic earaches. Oh yeah, that back problem that started when I was 19 and is still with me sometimes. Oh, right. I have tendinitis in both my shoulders. Like,
right. You start figuring it out.
Right. And in this culture, it's almost like we're used to being in pain. We're used to it. Do you think that is true, Nicole?
Yes, I think that we are all so accustomed to suffering in ways that we think are impossible to change. And then we look at, let's say, our parents, oh, well, my mom had migraines, so obviously I have migraines, or, whatever it is, the excuses that we make when we have no idea our power to affect our own health, both our emotional and our physical health. It is vast. I mean, if there's anything I ever want to do on any podcast appearance or anywhere I speak, is to say, please pause and realize that there are so many solutions out there that you might not yet know about. And when you do, replace your fear and your skepticism with curiosity and get a willingness and an open-mindedness for things. It's incredible how your life changes, which is one of the reasons I love doing my podcast, because I bring people on and they start telling your story. People write me. I get thousands of emails and they're like, I was listening to so-and-so on your podcast. She told my story. And I said, yeah, I know, because we're all the same. We're just all struggling the same with different ways it's showing up. So, his back pain could be her irritable bowel, and her irritable bowel is his fibromyalgia, and his fibromyalgia is her pelvic pain, and on and on and on. And we go to doctors, and they give us some sort of solution sometimes, but if they don't work, they throw their hands up and they say, well, this is something you're just going to have to live with for the rest of your life. And it is straight up not true, which is what I want to give people the power.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I love about you is, and you also, you always use and I'll probably get the term wrong, but you say this is science-based. This is not voodoo. This is not la stuff. This is like mind-body connection. This is all real. And you discovered that through healing yourself, through doing Dr. Sarnoff and then becoming a licensed clinical social worker.
Yes. So actually, I already had my credentials before I met I came into contact with Dr. Sarno's work in my mid-20s and did his work through his books. I had never met him. And then so I was getting my master's degree at the time. So I had my credentials, but I decided to dedicate my work and my practice to this after I went and did the hardcore work and met him when I was in my late 20s and early 30s. And that informed the rest of my life. And so essentially something that I think is important to say if people haven't heard of my work is it is brain science, which means that we are all living in a society that is a constant onslaught of predators. So what might have been a predator in the days of early man and woman, of a woolly mammoth chasing you or something like that, can happen just from your boss saying, hey, Nelsie, can you come have a seat? That will put your body into the same exact kind of fight or flight. And certain parts of our brain have not evolved at all. That reptilian brain, the brainstem that controls fight, flight, or freeze, that controls whether we are alive or not, our reflexes, stands in defense of us. And the brain and the nervous system perceive our repressed trauma, our stored emotions, the things that we have not, first of all, known we've needed to express nor understood how, as a greater predator, truly a life-threatening predator than the headaches and the back pain and the tendinitis and all the things that we think are just things we have to live with. They are an expression of this repressed emotional world. And one thing that is super important for people to understand is I am not telling anyone anything that they don't believe, because who among us hasn't had a stressful day and gotten a headache? And who among us has gone to the doctor the next day and ordered a CT scan of the head? Nobody. We know that stress can cause a headache. And so it's just kind of taking that concept, or we know that panic can cause hives, or we know that if you're extremely nervous about something, you'll either lose your appetite or you'll get diarrhea or you'll throw up. Like, we know that happens. And so to understand it on sort of just a widen the lens about it is what I teach.
Yeah. And one of the main tools that Nicole uses is something called Journal Speak, which if you go to her website, she has there's a link right to Journal Speak, which I actually went to because I wanted to know exactly how to do it. And it's different than normal journaling. And what I will say is that I've done it probably 10 times. And the reason I wanted to bring up Journal Speak, because it's like, there are plenty of us out there, me being in this category. I started getting help for depression and anxiety and compulsive eating at age 19. So I started therapy at a very young age, and I have been looking for help and trying to heal myself for a very long time. And I've had different kinds of chronic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I've had depression, I've had anxiety, I've had chronic pain in my shoulders, I've had chronic back pain. Nobody ever said, oh, you know what? You've got some repressed emotions, because you can lie on a couch and you can talk about, I can lie on a couch and talk about my father or my mother or my childhood for 20 some years. And that is not expressing those repressed emotions.
Yes.
It's so for me, when you said the Journal Speak, like I have chills right now. First of all, I was really excited and I was scared, because I was like, oh, fuck, what am I going to feel? What am I going to feel? And let me tell you, the first time I did a Journal Speak, I sobbed, like heaving sobs, so mad, so sad, so heartbroken. And for me, look, I'm tearing up now. What I realized is, oh my God, all that stuff is in there. It's there. And is it giving me shoulder pain? Maybe. Is it giving me a certain amount of anxiety and depression? Absolutely. So for me, I felt like on some level, I had found the magic key, a key that I'd been looking for decades. So that's why I got so excited about having you on. So talk a little bit about
Sure. So the first thing I want to say, based on what you just said, because I don't want anyone ever to misunderstand, it's not that therapy isn't helpful, and it's not that therapy isn't a great vehicle for self-expression to a certain point. And I also think, Nelsie, because this is brain science and because our nervous systems only are able to decide whether we're safe or not based on our human conscious input, knowing that your expression of your emotions is tied to your anxiety and to your shoulder pain is actually important. Belief, there's three facets of my work. Believe, do the work, and patience and kindness for yourself. And belief is key, because if you don't know that your back pain is associated with your repressed anger, it's very hard for your nervous system to make that connection and to stop sending the pain signals. And this is very important also to say that the pain is not in your head. It is absolutely physical. It is as physical. Trust me, I couldn't walk. So it's as physical as it gets. But what people don't understand is if you cut off your head, you're not going to feel any back pain. Your brain and your nervous system are responsible for absolutely every sensation that happens in your body. And so the pain is not in your head, but the solution is not in altering your physical body. The solution is in the belief and knowledge that the mind and the body are connected. And if we stop giving the input to the nervous system that you need to be saved, the pain signals will stop firing. So, there's only so much I could ever discuss in a podcast, but tons, as Nelsie said, tons and tons of free resources on, she'll show you where to find me. So Journal Speak. The reason Journal Speak is the key, the reason it is truly the most incredible and impactful tool I've ever witnessed in my long short life, is that without the shame, embarrassment, perception of being watched that you have in any interaction, whether it's with your best friend or your therapist or whatever, you are free to say the ugliest, most impolite, most upsetting, most true things. And the reason my book is called The Meaning of Truth is because the word true has many layered meanings. And yes, it is true that for me, I was exhausted by motherhood and it felt like a lot. But it was also true underneath, in a very raw, primitive place that was spoken by my inner child, that I hated being a mother, that I was trapped, that I felt like I couldn't breathe, and I felt like I had signed up for something that was going to swallow me whole. And when I was able to come to that in my Journal Speak, which is part of my story, which is everywhere and just people can read it, that I understood that Journal Speak does not stay true. But the ugliness, the cancer, if you will, of that truth that lives within us deep down, without showing it the light of day, the nervous system will perceive that truth as something so unthinkable and unspeakable that it must be defended against at all costs. The morning after I came to my first real journal Speak Truth, my back pain diminished by 80%, never to return. Over the next couple of months, I was able to do the deeper work after giving myself permission to do this initial journal speak. And that's when my back pain went away 100% and has never returned, even though my MRI looks exactly the same. And I had 3 children, exercised till the day they were born. Nothing has ever degenerated in my spine because it was a normal abnormality that probably was there since I was born, and it was never, ever responsible for my pain. Okay, had to say that. Now you go.
I just want to say brava for talking about how motherhood felt to you when you were able to journal speak. What I loved is that, I mean, Nicole talks about journal speaking a lot. And so it's really great. She does a really good job of explaining what it is. But one of the things that you have said that really helped me, it's completely unedited. And what is your 5-year-old feeling? What is your 5-year-old thinking? And I loved what you just said about, there's no therapist watching. There's no best friend. It's just me or you and the page. That's all it is. And when you're done, you take that and you get rid of it. I happen to have a shredder in my house. So I take those, I go downstairs to my little shredder and I take my 5, 6, 7 pages. I get a lot of fucking pages because I got a lot of shit going, and I put them in that shredder because it's so completely a letting go and an unearthing that is unlike anything I have ever had. And I have cried plenty in therapist office. And I appreciate what you said about therapy. Therapy's fantastic. Therapy saved my life. And, I'm still a work in progress. And it's okay. About 2 or 3 years ago, I realized that, instead of feeling like I can't believe I'm not finished yet, or I can't believe I haven't figured it out yet, at age 61, 62, I thought, I turned that around. I go, well, what if I get to keep growing until I die?
Absolutely.
What if it's good that I haven't figured that out? What if we don't arrive? What if we just get to keep evolving? And so I'm still a work in progress and probably always will be. And because I had that attitudinal change, I was able to find Journal Speak, and just uncover levels of anger that have just been sitting there waiting for me, making my shoulders hurt, giving me neck pain, et cetera, et cetera. Probably have a lot to do with depression and anxiety. So, so you find Dr. Sarnoff, you go from being completely debilitated to first journal speak 80%. Now you do not have, are you pain free, or is that kind of a crazy idea?
Okay. So, when I first started doing this work, so first of all, it's Sarno, Sarno. I'm only saying that because I always want people to find him correctly, because his work is genius, and it is the foundation for everything that I teach. And since I'm not a medical doctor, some people do like to go read the mind body prescription, and just figure out the initial medical basis for this. So when I first started doing this, I just did it from his books, and I didn't understand the deeper work to be done. And when eventually he became my colleague, and we worked closely together at NYU for years before he passed, he used to literally shove me. I was so young. I was like in my early 30s, and he would just shove me out in front of him on stage and say, well, Nicole explains it better than me, which used to be hilarious to me since he was like 90 and had been doing this for his whole life. But I do understand it in a very deep way, because it isn't just about being a medical doctor. It's about being a therapist. It's about understanding how to explain you to you, And so when and my story is long, and my recovery does not follow a straight line. So I did have a dip in my recovery when I understood I had to do much deeper work, which is where Journal Speak was born. So to answer your question, that first 80%, which, by the way, it doesn't stay true. People need to understand this. This is a darkness that needs to come out. It doesn't stay true. I do not hate being a mother. My kids are 19, 17, and 13 now, and they're freaking amazing. And because I didn't parent them through the lens of my own neediness and my repressed trauma, they are incredible friends and loves. And so anyway, it's changed my whole life. The pain is the biggest, littlest part. Chronic pain, chronic conditions, chronic fatigue, anxiety, depression. Yes, they are everything when they are blocking your vision. But what they really are is inviting you to the precipice of truths that have been awaiting your acknowledgement. And when you find them, it transforms everything about your life. So I did that work. For the next 3 months, I did more work on many different topics. Motherhood was just one of them. And yes, I will say, Nelsie, with absolute confidence, I am chronic pain-free. I am not pain-free because there is no cure for human pain. We are not supposed to be cured from pain. Sometimes you feel things in your heart and sometimes you feel things in your body, and they are literally interchangeable. I can be having a sad day and I can feel it in my stomach. I can feel anger and rage and I can get a stiff back. That is part of being alive. And once we realize that that is the baseline of being alive, we stop getting scared and we stop judging it. If I have a bad day and I have a headache or a stomach ache or a back thing, I'll just be like, so it is, and I am having big feelings today. And I guess my nervous system in its wisdom has realized that my heart cannot hold it all. And my headache's going to hold a cup of that for me today. And when I look at it like that, the headache goes away within an hour or two because I'm not clinging to the need for it to be cared for that way. But I am chronic pain free because chronic pain is an epidemic of fear and meaning. And I do not give my pain or my little like the whimsical stuff. When I say whimsical, I mean like it floats through, I am the sky and my pain is the weather. I allow it to go. I watch it. I embody it. I let it go. And there are times I'm an incredibly anxious person. I'm wired really, really anxious and insomniac. And there's a lot of things I've had my whole life. And when they come, I welcome them the way I would welcome anything because they're just parts of me and they're just a feeling. And I move over on my kindergarten carpet and I say, hey, anxiety, take a seat, stay as long as you need. And that's the way I handle the ups and downs, but it just flows through me as it does many, many thousands of people around the world that are doing this work. So I'm not special here, just so you know.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I love about you too, is that, that yes, you're an expert. Yes, you got to study with Sarna, and yes, you, have been doing this for a very long time. And so you have a lot of knowledge, but you also say, look, you think I want to do my journal speak every day? You think I don't, like you're just one of us, which is so fantastic and which makes me trust you so much more. I'm very wary around anyone who doesn't have a certain level of vulnerability and accessibility. You really have that. And another thing that you have that I love is this incredible gentleness. You're always reminding all of us to be gentle with self, kindness and patience. Like that to me is like, I'm tearing up again because it's, having grown up with an incredible amount of trauma and I think, being unconsciously not that nice to myself, that whenever I hear that kind of language, I'm so moved by it because it's so needed and it's kind of a foreign concept. Mm-hmm. It's less and less foreign because I've been doing inner child work for about 4 years now. But so anyway, you and I, because you know this stuff so well and because I'm so fascinated by it and inspired by it, we could talk for probably, 7 or 8 hours about it. But I am aware that the podcast is only so long and you have other things to do, but you do have a losing it story for me. Is that right?
I have so many, but I'm going to pick one.
All right.
All right. So originally when we spoke, I was going to tell my very favorite losing it story that has to do with my chronic pain journey. But Nelsie invited me to tell one that maybe I don't tell as often. And I love that idea because there's so many stories. We're so complicated and textured as human beings. And so my losing it story I would like to share is not about me, but is about my son and his chronic issues, because as an expert and as a mom, there's nothing more painful than knowing exactly what I have to do for myself and having no godly idea how to explain that to a child, and then watching the child suffer with something that, in my estimation, is easily fixable if he could just understand. And So the story with Oliver is he was born very anxious, which of course made me feel guilty just from the start because I am anxious and I'm like, great, I've passed this on to my newborn. And the reason I say newborn is because he was chronically anxious from as young as you can be. He wasn't able to eat like solid food right away because he'd put a Cheerio in his mouth, and when he would try to swallow it, the panic he would feel that there was something solid going down his throat, he would throw up. And so for the first several years of his life, he threw up several times a day. It was really traumatic for both of us because it would happen in public, and it was like up until he was about 3 or 4 years old. So it wasn't just a baby. In addition, he could never go out for Halloween. It was so sad. He would cry and cry because he would see one person in a mask and he would go into such a panic attack. We would have to bring him home. Anytime a Disney movie was on, he would run into the closet and shut the door because he was so scared that there was going to be a bad guy. So this is abnormal. This is abnormal child anxiety and not related to any trauma, which just shows how organic anxiety can be, that we're all born with a certain nature. And that was his nature. So as he got older, he got horrible stomach problems. And of course, I know what's going on here. And of course, I know, but you can't tell that to a 6, a 7, an 8-year-old. And, any responsible parent, I ended up in the emergency room several times because I don't want to ignore it. He's on the floor screaming in agony. It could be his appendix. It could be an obstruction in his intestine. Like, I'm not going to just say, oh, this is anxiety or this is mind body, But after a certain amount of being sent home from the emergency room and the urgent care and the pediatrician, with everyone saying nothing was wrong with him, I was losing it because I could not figure out how to explain to him.
How can I help? How can I help my son who's in pain?
Yes, he was in pain, and it was really, really upsetting. So the story goes that we were on our way to a Halloween party. He was about 8 years old. And he decided he didn't want to wear a costume. And he also had a lot of sort of OCD behaviors that he would keep himself safe in ways that just made sense to him. And for whatever reason, he didn't like any of the costumes that he had thought of. And so he just wasn't going to wear a costume. So as we're driving to the party, which was about a 20-minute drive, he's getting a worse and worse stomach ache. And by the time we got to the party, I had allowed him to unbuckle his seatbelt, and he was lying on the floor of the car in the back seat. We had a minivan, and he was just screaming in agony. And I was like losing it, and I knew I had to do something different. And so I had all the kids get out and go into the party, which was a family member. So everybody was safe and cared for. And I said, come on, Oliver, you're coming with me. And he was like, what? And I said, we're not going inside. And he said, okay. And in my mind, I knew what I was doing, but it was a crapshoot, and it was a risk, and I was going to take it. And so we drove away from the party, and now he's getting confused, but I'm sure he assumes we're going to the hospital or we're going somewhere. I mean, he's only 8, and we have done this several times before. And we pull into, I think it was a Walgreens. It was some sort of a drugstore. And I decided in my calculated risk that I had to be a little unkind. This was not time for squishy mommy. And I said, come on, get out of the car. It's time to go. And he said, what are we doing? And I said, get out of the car. Follow me. So now we're walking through the parking lot, and he's doubled over in pain, but I'm sure now he sees it's a drugstore. He figures we're going to go in and get him some sort of medicine. So we get into this crazy, brightly fluorescently lit drugstore, and I look around for the most expensive thing that I can find, because he's also oddly very concerned about money and how much is that, mommy? And I know this kid, and I know what I need to do to knock him out of his current brain state. And I find the deluxe set of Pokemon cards, which was $50. And I pull it off the shelf, and I thrust it into his little grip, and I said, I'm buying this for you. And he looks at me and he goes, what? Why? It's $50. And I said, just be quiet. I'm buying this for you. Follow me. So now I notice, I'm just looking at him out of the corner of my eye. He's not doubled over anymore. Okay. So now we get to the back of the store, and we go through the candy aisle, and I open up a Twizzlers. I literally rip open the Twizzlers, and I throw it at him, and I said, eat this. And he goes, but I haven't had dinner yet. And I said, eat it.
Oh my God, the earth is spinning off its axis. My mother is letting me eat Twizzlers.
Not only letting, forcing. I said, eat it.
Forcing.
And he goes, but we haven't paid for it. I said, eat it. So now I'm walking, and I'm acting, as far as he's concerned, like a total lunatic. but I see him and he starts to eat the Twizzler. And then we get to the toy aisle and there's those cars that if you pull them back, they're going to go flying forward on their own motion.
Yeah.
Okay. And I take 2 cars and I sit down on the floor of the aisle. So I'm obviously looking like I need to be like institutionalized at this point for anyone in the store. And I give him a car and I go, race me. And I pull my car back and it starts careening down the aisle and it starts banging into all the stuff. And he, as 8 years old, this is irresistible behavior. So he pulls his car back and the cars are racing down the aisle. And I look at him and I go, chase it, I'll catch you. And he goes running down the aisle. And when we get to the end of the aisle, I look at him and I cry when I tell the story because it's so moving to me.
I'm so moved.
And I
it's
said
so
to
moving.
him, how's your stomach? And he looks at me and he goes, it's fine. And I look him in the eye and I said, baby, nothing's wrong with you. I said, you're really anxious and sometimes that comes through in your stomach, but it doesn't have to be that way for you. You can do other things to make you know that you're okay. If you can just break through this. And it broke his fear. Wow. And it broke his attachment to his illness. And I will tell you, Nelsie, my hand to God, he's 17 now. He has never had to have medical attention for his stomach again. On the few situations that he's gotten that kind of stomach ache, which is a very painful situation because mind body stuff is no joke. He has come to me over the years and said, I'm having an anxiety stomach ache. Can we talk about it? And we go through and we take an inventory of what's going on in his life. And sometimes, to be honest, it's not a bad thing because your nervous system doesn't always know the difference between excitement and anxiety because the same exact metabolic processes are happening in your body for excitement or anxiety. And he's a huge music fan. And there was one time he came to me and he was having one of these stomach aches because his favorite band was releasing an album at midnight tonight and he couldn't wait. And so we talked through it and the stomach ache goes away. And to this day, he's 17. He's never had problems again. And this was like emergency room stuff. So it was a magical story for me. And it's something I hold close to my heart.
That is so magical. Thank you so much. I have to tell you, it's amazing to me that that's the story you chose because my best friend's son has chronic pain. And he's been diagnosed with Lyme disease. He's had he's been to countless different medical doctors who have the right solution.
Yeah.
He's, and I have sent them your podcasts. I have talked about Journal Speak. It's one of these things where, and he's at college now. But he has chronic pain and had his gallbladder removed and it has an IV of antibiotics. I mean, it's been years and years and years and probably hundreds of thousands of dollars. And his world got very, very small. And when I found you, I felt like, oh my God, this is the answer. But it's very hard when people are ensconced in the Western solution, traditional medical, to get them away from that, even though it's, in my estimation, it hasn't worked. It's so interesting and kind of perfect that that's the story you chose because I'm a mother and I really related on that level. And also I just love the image of you guys in Walgreens chasing the trucks and you're going, how's your stomach? And that you broke. What I loved is that you broke his relationship to being a sick kid. You changed his identity, his relationship to it. And that is so powerful. And I bet you experience that all the time with people that do your work. Is that correct? Because if you identify yourself as someone who's chronically ill. So that's part of what you have to let go of, right?
Yes. I can't tell you. So I have been I was in private practice for many years, and I am no longer in private practice because I closed my practice a few years ago in order to really focus on taking this message to the world, because too many people told me, Nicole, you are confining this to the four walls of your office and it's just too important. And that's when I wrote my book and I wrote my courses and I started traveling and teaching and lecturing and all the things I do, my podcast, blah, blah, blah. And so I receive emails from people all around the world, 99.9% that I have never met or never spoken to, who have just come across my work and then done the online course or come to a retreat or whatever. And especially since COVID, I do so many retreats virtually that I can speak with people all over the world. But one of the things that I hear the most, which is so crazy and makes me, I don't even know how to feel this enough, to be honest with you. This is one of my personal dilemmas. Like, how do I feel this enough? And maybe just I can't. But I will hear people write me and they say, I was planning my suicide. I couldn't live like this for one more second. I decided that if I didn't feel better by Christmas, that I had to take my life. I had one woman tell me she was Googling ways to end her life while her kids and her husband were on the other couch watching TV at night. I mean, these are real true stories. And I know it sounds like a lot to say, but I say it because this is how no nonsense chronic pain and chronic conditions can be. They make you feel, even chronic depression and anxiety, obviously depression, they make you feel so hopeless that that people just feel they can't see the long-term solution. And they write to me and say, and I was on a deep dive on Google at 3:00 in the morning, and somehow I came across your work and I took the course and I read the book or I did it on my own or whatever. And the email is coming 6 months, a year later, 3 months later. There's no time limit with them saying, and I'm back to work full time and I'm getting married and I'm having my first child and I've never felt this joy for life. And like, I'm covered in chills because it's so remarkable. Like you said, once people no longer feel that hopeless, desperate connection to being a person with no solutions, that they open themselves, they do the work and they heal. And it's just unbelievable, because when I first started this back in 2000, when I opened my private practice, I thought, well, I'll be able to make the difference I can make. You know, one of the things they teach you when you're getting your master's in social work is that story about the kid on the beach with the starfish. I don't know if you've ever heard this one, but the kid is walking down the beach with his grandfather, and the beach is littered with starfish that have been washed ashore after a great storm. And if they don't get back in the water, they're going to die. And the kid picks up a starfish and he throws it in the water. Then he picks up another, then he picks up another. And his grandfather says to him, what are you doing? You'll never be able to throw back in enough to make a huge difference. And the kid picks up a starfish and he throws it in. He said, I made a difference to that one. And that's a story that they tell you in social work school, because it's so hard when you start opening yourself up to the incredible suffering in this world and really being willing to look at it and poverty and addiction and abuse and neglect and all the things. And you're like, oh my God. And it does tempt you to think, what could I even do? But any person that my work touches, I made a difference to that one. And that is something that I hold very dear to me every day.
Oh my God. Thank you so much. Do you have any tips? And I know I'm not the first person to ask you this. If you have someone that you think can really benefit, like I have a couple of people that I know that I think could really benefit from your work, and like any techniques to how to get them to try, because when people are looking over here, how do you get them to switch their focus? How do you get them when, like I just know, and I could be wrong, but I just know that your work will help my best friend's son. And I sent him a couple of your podcasts. And actually my brother's wife has rheumatoid arthritis. She has chronic pain. Like I feel like I got a lot of people around me. Do you have any tips in that way, how you can maybe help to get somebody who might be resistant to try this?
Yeah, this is a tough one. Dr. Sarno used to talk about this all the time. Yeah. So essentially, here's the deal. Everyone has their own path, and there is absolutely no way to force their hand. There just isn't. So what I say is, This is a journey of attraction, not promotion, which is something they also say in 12-step programs, which is, you have to live your best life and be in your state of joy and of openness and of willingness. And it doesn't mean that that doesn't work. I have a very dear friend, Danielle, who I've interviewed on my podcast twice. She's one of my best friends in the world. And she read my book and she believed in it and she believed in me. And when she started having a symptom, which was very upsetting to her, which is her eyes were constantly tearing. And it wasn't just tearing, they were becoming red and inflamed, and they were sort of stuck together when she would wake up with crusts, almost like a conjunctivitis, but she didn't have conjunctivitis. And she went through all the drops and all the allergy medications and all this stuff, and it wouldn't stop and it wouldn't stop. She was really in despair, and I knew she knew what I did, and I knew that she didn't believe it applied to her, and she's my best friend, and I had to sit patiently. Wow. And then one day she's a composer for documentary film. She's a pianist and she's an incredible talent. And she was in LA on location doing this job, scoring this documentary. And she emailed me and said, I'm just having such a bad day, and, it's really bad, and I can't wear makeup, and that triggers all my, self-esteem stuff. And I just wrote, Danny, might I gently suggest that this is a result of the mind-body connection and you should revisit my work? And she said that one email made all the difference. She revisited my work. She did the work. It went away within a week or two and it's never returned. And so,
wow.
I think that it's almost like being patient with someone to let them come to their true readiness. You've offered him the podcast. You've been an example, a walking example of belief in this work. Every once in a while, you whisper it to him, and one day he may turn around and say, Nelsie, tell me more. And that will be the only day it could help him anyway, guys. Anyone out there listening, you cannot force true readiness on someone because their nervous system needs to be ready to receive the information. Nothing about this can be forced. And that's where it sort of enters the realm of spirituality for me, and of just openness to a greater question of what is energy and what is our connectedness, and how do we help each other? How can we hold space for each other? And it's all real beautiful to me.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fantastic. Oh, thank you so much, Nicole. I'm so glad that you told that story. I'm so glad that you said yes. Nicole has, first of all, listen to her podcast, The Cure for Chronic Pain. It's really wonderful. Every single one is interesting and compelling and inspiring and educational. And she also has an amazing Instagram. Is your Instagram Cure for Chronic Pain as well?
No, it's just me. It's at Nicole Sachs, LCSW, no H in Nicole.
Yeah. And also so much free content on her YouTube channel. What's your 4-part series that it's one sort of a good way in on on
so
YouTube?
The YouTube channel is called The Cure for Chronic Pain, and the 4-part series is called Healing Yourself, parts 1 through 4. And it is a really great overview of my work, just a good place to get started. And my website's thecureforchronicpain.com, which has tons of free resources on the resources tab. And that's where you found how to journal, speak, and frequently ask questions.
Yeah. Yeah. And she also has, because I did the journal speak, because you talk about when you do the journal speak, afterwards, you're like, oh, forget I need a cigarette. I need to, whatever. It's very she actually also has a meditation that you can download for a small price, which so totally worth it, where you walk us through getting us sort of back in the day and back in our bodies. And it's really lovely. She's just amazing. If you can't tell, I adore her. So admire her work, and you're such a giver. The most recent podcast that I heard of yours, you were like, okay, I'm in overwhelm and I'm taking time off. So I loved that too. You were like, yeah, guess what? You're allowed to take time off, even when you're trying to save the starfishes, one starfish at a time. And, we are allowed to take time off. And I thought, and so you're also this lovely model, you're modeling and doing it imperfectly like all of us. So that's
Yeah.
fantastic.
No, I found I did the podcast every day, every week for 3 years. I never missed a week. And then I decided I'm feeling like on the edge of burnout here. So I'm taking a few weeks off, but I will be back probably by like mid-November.
She'll be
So
back.
not to fear. There's only so many weeks I can stay away.
Yeah, and you have over 150 podcasts. So go there now, guys, and you can listen to one every day, and it'll take you a half a year to catch up. So thank you so much, Nicole. I really appreciate you coming on. Support Nicole, be kind to yourself and others, and just be, what is it? Patience and kindness. Is that what you say,
Yes.
Nicole?
Yes. Patience and kindness. It's so important. It's not just woo-woo therapy talk. It's actually calms your brain and your nervous system and allows for healing.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
So that was amazing. I knew I was going to cry a little bit, just teary. I mean, I didn't weep, so I'm glad about that. And wasn't she amazing? Oh, so amazing. So smart, funny, sweet, articulate, eloquent. Just, I loved her. Great. I love that she's a mom because I'm a mom, but it's also lovely to have somebody who can help us in that arena, help us in the parenting department. And I love that she told a story about her son. It was a hell of a story, right? I just love the image of them in Walgreens. Just, she's force feeding him Twizzlers. They're racing. Love it. Hey, how's the stomach? Stomach ache. Gone. Okay. So I have another story that I wanted to share with you guys. And my husband has been teasing me about this ever since it happened. So once a week, first of all, I'll preface all of this by saying that we've been going to the movies now that the pandemic, it's not over, but movie theaters are open. And so we've been trying to go to the movies once a week and go out to dinner once a week. So we went and saw the Many Saints of Newark. I'm sure most of you know that is like the origin story for Tony Soprano for the HBO show, The Sopranos. And it's created by the same guy. So we went and saw that. And it takes place in North Jersey, right? And they're Italian, and it's about like, what are you doing? And look at your hair and you're dressing like a whore. What the hell? So it's quite good. I really liked it. I didn't know if I would, but I really liked it. And James Gandolfini's son plays young James Gandolfini, young Tony Soprano in the movie. So that's pretty friggin' brilliant. So I recommend it. Ray Liotta's in it. Amazing. Yeah, go there now. Go and see it. Don't wait till I finish, then go and watch it. We go and see on a Saturday, we go and see the Many Saints of Newark. And then on a Sunday, we go out to dinner. We go into this restaurant and I'm forever cold. I just, I always feel like restaurants are almost always way too cold, right? So we go into the restaurant and I walk in. It's one of these crazy warm nights, right? So I walk in and it's like 60 degrees in the place and 70 degrees outside. And I walk in, I'm like, it's freezing in here. Am I right? And there's these two young women behind the hostess station and they're, 19, 20 tops, right? And the one of them goes, yeah, it's a little cold. And the other one's like, no, I'm fine. She's wearing like a strapless dress. I'm like, what? Were you born in Alaska? Did you grow up in Alaska? And I just think I'm being friendly, right? And then we go and we sit down and our waitress comes over and she's like, yeah, did you guys want, did you bring your own wine? Because it's one of those BYOB places. She's not very friendly. So we had a fine time. We didn't have a bad time, but we had a fine time and we left. And I was like, God, our waitress wasn't very nice. And my husband, as he's wont to do, he comes to me the next day and he goes, I've been thinking about last night. And I think that you came on a little strong with the hostesses. And I'm like, what? Well, you walk in and you're like, it's freezing in here. And he says it with like a North Jersey accent, a Newark accent. It's freezing in here. What? You grow up in Alaska? What the hell? So he's starts, and I realize I think I'm being friendly, and sometimes I'm just an asshole. I forget that I'm like this older person, and these kids, they're 19, and I just come in and like, it's cold in here. What the heck? What, you grow up in Alaska? You look like a whore in that dress. What's wrong? Your mother? Did your mother see you in that dress? Jesus Christ. Yeah, what are the specials? Anyway, that's me telling on myself, and my husband sort of pretty gently going, you got to tone it down, Nelsie. Tone it down. Yeah, I came on a little strong. I think I scared those two lovely young women at the restaurant. And then I think they sent us, here's my husband's theory, that they sent us the meanest waitress, that they went over to the waitress, they go, look, that couple, that older couple on table 27, she's an asshole, okay? So just watch out for her, which is why the waitress came over and said, yeah, what do you guys want? So that's my story. That's my story of me telling on myself. I don't blame myself. I blame the many saints of Newark, because I went there. I thought I was Italian. I thought I might have been born in Newark, and I just went there with a little bit of an attitude. Yeah. What are you? Born in Alaska? All right. That's the end of my story. So please rate, review, and subscribe. Be kind to yourself and others. And most importantly, don't poop in the ocean. Bye, guys. See you next week.
Losing it, losing it, losing it, losing it, losing it, losing it. You came and you listened to the story. I hope so much that it didn't make you sorry, and I hope so much that you'll come back again.
Losing It, hosted by Nelsie Spencer. Produced by me, Ronnie Whaley. Theme song by Hunter Williams. Follow us online on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and all podcasting platforms at Losing It Podcast. Viewers can email Nelsie with questions or comments about life, writing, comedy, or even your own Losing It story for a chance to be on the Losing It Podcast at losingitcontact@gmail.com. For everything Nelsie and everything Losing It, visit us at nelsiespencer.com.